feel as though stories, the ones people have of us and the ones we have of ourselves, are the only things we truly have and truly leave as a form of identity. As our stories and our dispositions change, whether by natural evolution or exilic necessity, there's a shift in our identity, a reevaluation of that fundamental understanding of self. Who am I? What am I? Where am I? Why am I? Sometimes we find ourselves in exile, stripped of identity and left in a diaspora in which we either recreate our traditions or embrace exile as an opportunity to create a new life. We are able to redefine the connotation as an aspect of growth and externalize it into a constructive aspect of one's identity rather than a state of abandonment. The story of exile is relevant. It is close to everyone. We see it in each other's passions and in our own tangible pursuits of understanding.
Hey,
I'm John. I'm from Worcester, Massachusetts, and I play music in a lot of different projects around here. When I was a sophomore, my family was going to Manhattan to see my sister perform in the Macy's Day Parade because her dance academy had a program where they could go and do this big dance in the parade, and they got to march in the parade, and they got to meet all kinds of people and be on Good Morning America. My family was wondering whether or not I wanted to come along. They basically said, we're going to be in the city for a week. You're just going to be with us. You're going to miss Thanksgiving at home, but we'll be in the city and it'll be fun. We'll get to see New York. I was going through kind of a really rough time at the time because I was in sort of a toxic relationship, toxic more because of the way that I was handling it. I sort of just needed to distance myself and get away from a lot of the stuff I was feeling, and so I decided that it would be a good idea to go. It was a very, very strange experience for me. I remember that it was very, very cold, and you couldn't go anywhere without there just being throngs of people. I also remember that I never felt more alone in my entire life. In a place with so many people and so much going on, because it was the holiday season, so there were tons of families there, and you would think that it would feel like a very happy and welcoming place, but it just felt so empty. And by the end of the week, I just was completely jaded with the experience and completely overwhelmed by how disappointed and sad and alone I felt. It almost felt like the city kind of sucked the life out of me by the time I got back. And I remember it just being a very, very moving experience for me because I had no one else to talk to that whole time other than my family. It was very different to just have my only confiding source be my dad. I feel like I got a lot closer with them that week, but it wasn't always a fun experience. It was a lot of the times a very difficult experience and very sort of challenging for all of us because we got into a lot of fights. But coming out of it, I think that it really helped me get closer to my family. I think that it really helped me internalize a lot of how I felt about cities, how I felt about spaces, especially a space like Manhattan where there's so many people and yet it somehow manages to just feel so lifeless. I ended up writing this song about it that just kind of tells that story almost in a very similar way to the way I've already told it just now, and it's called Manhattan.
A sophomore year in college, my family took a trip to Manhattan around Thanksgiving. It was bitter cold most days, and everyone walked swiftly with their heads down. I felt as if the city had eaten every ounce of feeling in me. Manhattan is a soulless place around the holidays.
is Zoe Ritter. I'm just going to talk about an experience I had my freshman year of college. The second person I slept with raped me. It's a difficult thing to talk about. I knew I didn't want to have sex with this person, and I knew this person, but I didn't ever term it as rape until I would say a year later, when I was talking to one of my friends about it, and just going through the experience with her, and like actually talking about what happened and what was said and not said and the emotions I felt during that night. And it wasn't until then when she was like, Zoe, like, you know, this is assault, like this is rape, and you need to call it what it is, and you need to come to terms with what it is. You know, my experience wasn't the typical thing that you see on TV. It wasn't necessarily violent, and it wasn't a stranger, and you know, this person didn't like pull me into a dark alleyway and violate me. I just remember saying no multiple times, and like him asking me over and over again like why I didn't want to, and then eventually just not saying anything, and him just and at first I like tried to push him away, but eventually like I just became so lifeless and I just stopped like doing anything, and I was able to leave. And I just remember him kissing me on the forehead after and saying, I'm sorry it hurt so much. I remember the morning after the experience and like not really knowing what to think, knowing that it was negative, but also feeling that it was my fault. And I was talking to my friends and they were asking me like what I did last night, and I remember telling them that I had slept with this guy, but like I acted like I was proud of it because I didn't even know how to deal with it and didn't even realize what had happened. I felt like I don't even want to use the word rape because like there have been so many other rapes that were worse than mine. There have been so many other people that were raped, and their experience was much, much more traumatic, and I almost didn't want to take away from their experience, but I realized that that's definitely not the right way to think about it. But the important thing is to not be silent about it like I was for so long. I really don't want to be quiet about it any longer. It's a hard thing to write about in my poetry, but I tried to approach the subject either from my perspective or from a character's perspective that I've created. I have sex without the protection of I love you. He puts his body bag on top of me, starts to zip it up over my head. He stops listening. I have sex without I love you. I have sex without the protection of I care enough about you to stop when it hurts. To him, I am already a grave site, my empty casket of a body ripped open, blooming and dying from the inside out. He touches my cheek with the burial dirt under his fingernails, whispers that he cannot kiss me. He doesn't like the taste of formaldehyde. When I start crying, he allows me the courtesy of looking away. Mom, I've been asleep on the sidewalk with the earthworms. They are starting to crawl into my eye sockets. The grass is starting to sprout through my scalp. I think about carving this scar on the backs of my kneecaps so it will be retorn. Every time I walk, I think about walking. For 3 weeks, I have walked with my legs close together, afraid my insides were going to fall out between my thighs. Mom, I never said no. Our minds see the greatest things when we are trying to escape. It took you 18 years to call it rape. I haven't decided on a name yet, but I know that I will never tell you.
I'm Andrea Schuster, but everyone calls me Andy. I'm an artist. I love art. I think it's the most stable thing in my life. I mean, as of right now, but like that's another story. That's another time. Yeah, I've been doing art since I was very young. My experience with Exile, which I think the one that's most memorable that I can really think of is just when I was younger in elementary school. I had a math disability and I was in like some emotional support classes, and they would take me out of the regular class and take us down to like a different room, and like the only classes we would be there for would be like gym and art. And so I felt like art was like the only place I could feel like a little, you know, like everyone else. I'm a messy painter, but I don't think that's a big deal. I think people should work in the environment they want to work in. I feel like taking some art classes, it'd always be like, oh, keep your palette clean and stuff, and mine would always be like just everywhere. My palette's like ridiculous. There's colors everywhere, and like I'll just like wipe my brush anywhere, like on my clothes. Not on nice clothes, but. It's about just not letting something that's holding you down stop you. And art, I feel like, really helped me like get on top. And because when I was younger, I said I was going to get out of those classes and work hard too, and I did. And by the time like I left 5th grade, I was like never in those classes again. And when they tried to make me be in them, I always got out. And yeah, it's just about this woman is supposed to be art, and she's helping me like rise from like this water that it's supposed to be something like just like things within that are holding you down, and just like life that's holding you down. And I'm flipping it off, being like the world off, being like, fuck it, like I'm gonna do this.
I'm Hannah. I use they, them pronouns. I'm 20 years old and I'm currently taking time off from school. I came into farming and herbalism because I have fibromyalgia, which is a big reason why I'm taking time off from school. And I got into herbalism also because I used to have a really bad eating disorder, and it was a way for me to nourish myself while also connecting deep with the land and return myself back to nature. This was what I was meant to do. This is everything I've wanted to do. I'm really passionate about food justice and also herbalism because it combines so many things that I feel are important. Community access to medicine, whether it be I now study a lot of herbal medicine for queer and trans people and also people of color as a form of access, keeping the food out of the hands of the 1% and making food for the people and not for profit. And I'm glad I finally found the methods to do it. And I'm glad it's helped me in my own personal healing. And it really just grounded me and made me realize this is what I want to do and this is the community I want to be in. And this is what I want to work to shape my life by doing.
My name is Sophia. I'm a student at Clark, and I do graphic design. I do pretty much everything. I was in an abusive relationship, and throughout that process I was drawing a lot, but it was more as a form of escape than as something that was like tangible. It's so anxiety filled. It's like these like very like detailed patterns and like checkerboards and like all of these things, and you can like very much see that I like was not in a place where I was able to create. Once I like realized what had been happening to me and like got to a place where I felt safe, I didn't really create for a while. And I would like try to start pieces and it just like would not work. Like just like papers with like one line on them. I was just like overwhelmed by like coming out of that situation. During the fall semester of my junior year, something just like broke in me where I was just like, I need to get all of this out of my brain right now. Like I have so many horrible memories. Like I need to deal with this. I was in a photo class, and like being able to put those memories into photographs, I think was like a very important process, but it was also something that made me retract from my social life. I was very much alone in the process of like dealing with that. I think my biggest piece was probably that photo series that I did where I just like took paint and like put handprints on my body like everywhere where I'd been hit. That was huge for me to just like be able to like mark it on my body, take a photograph of it and be like, this happened to me, but it doesn't define who I am, and I can like put it on a negative and have it exist there instead of kind of haunting me. And I think that was like a huge step in my healing process to like visualize that experience and mourn it in a certain way. It's hard to like say that, to be like, I was abused, and like it was very solitary, but at the same time kind of being able to tell like random people who I didn't really know that well, who were just my classmates, about it would kind of make the process easier, because I finally had to just say it and like admit it to myself. I had completely lost myself in this relationship, and I was able to use art as like an outlet to like communicate with people in a way that is different from like writing a paper. Like I can visually express myself. I think that was like the biggest development for me out of that period of like solitude, was like being okay with myself as an artist and not giving a shit what people think about my art, and just being like, this is for me, like this is what makes me feel good, this is what helps me, because I allowed so much good to come out of it, out of the healing process. So it's just weird that so much can come out of something so horrible.
In some way or another, exile may settle into our stories, and although we do not all share the same history, we are still connected in our experience of self-identification.